Welcome to footballgameplan.com, where football makes sense. I'm Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook, bringing you our preview of the College Gridiron Showcase, a game that features a lot of the underrated 2019 NFL Draft prospects. Now, I can't wait to get down there to Fort Worth, Texas to check out this all-star event. And I say event because this isn't a game at the end of the practices, and that's what makes the College Gridiron Showcase very unique. Players across the country will compete in 3 practices this upcoming week in front of NFL, CFL, and other professional league scouts, culminating at the end of the week with 2 live scrimmages as well. This gives the scouts what they value most at all-star games, the practices, and the players get a good week of work of film and also reps in front of pro scouts and coaches. Now, looking at some of the talent that'll be there this week, as in South Dakota State's quarterback Taryn Christian is one of the headliners. Christian finished his Jackrabbits career with over 11,000 passing yards and 104 touchdown passes to only 34 interceptions at 8.5 yards an attempt. He has been a big reason why South Dakota State was a perennial power in the FCS over the last 3 seasons. Christian also finished his career with 1,500 yards rushing and 26 rushing touchdowns. Speaking of rushing yards and touchdowns, Lehigh's Dominic Bragalone finished his career rushing for a lot of them and scoring a ton of them, 46 touchdowns to be exact, and over 4,500 yards rushing, making him one of the best rushers in the FCS. I'm interested to see what he can bring to the table in the passing game at the next level, as I'll get familiar with a lot of his skills as a receiver coming out of the backfield. Cameron Lewis of St. Francis was one of the top receivers in the FCS, and as a sophomore, Lewis had a breakout 1,400-yard, 11 touchdown season, and while he couldn't replicate those numbers over the last 2 years with the Red Flash, he still was a premier target as he hauled in an additional 125 receptions for 1,700 yards and 13 touchdowns, being the team's #1 target in the passing game. And speaking of being the #1 target in the passing game, Kennesaw State didn't pass much, but when they did, they went to Justin Sumter out there on the perimeter. He's a big, tall receiver with tremendous hands and savvy as a route runner, despite coming from that option offense. So we'll get to see the full complement of his skills this week down there in Fort Worth. Another receiver that I'm excited to see this week is Justin Christian out of Marist. The Pioneer League All-Star was a guy that did a great job on kickoff returns, punt returns, and also in the short to intermediate pass area. He was their big playmaker. He has a ton of speed, world-class speed. Another one of these players that will raise a lot of eyebrows this week in front of pro scouts. Kansas Jayhawks tight end Marvin Saunders is another prospect that comes in with a lot of intrigue. The former Florida State Seminole transferred to Kansas this season and is still a relative unknown as far as scouting is concerned. So the scouts will get a good idea of his skill set and what he can project to be moving forward. And I'm a big fan of North Carolina State's Teron Prescott. The 6'4", 334-pound offensive lineman is a punishing run blocker, but also is one of the more consistent in pass pro within the ACC. This will be a great chance for him, or for me, to get a good idea of the athleticism and the versatility that he brings to the table. On the defensive side of the ball, Florida Tech has a sleeper defensive end in Adonis Davis. He's a 6'3", 255-pound edge player that shows good ball get off on tape and has top-notch functional strength at the point of attack. I will be more interested to see his change of direction skills and learn more on where he could potentially play at the next level. And you talk about a well-coached player coming from a very good program, and you're talking about a guy like Ronald Holly from Nichols, the 6'2", 310-pound defensive tackle. I think has very good versatility up front to play multiple techniques in any defense. He's going to be one to raise a lot of eyebrows this week down there in Texas. Luke Gifford out of Nebraska dealt with some injuries early in his Huskers career, but put together a fine senior season where he led Nebraska in TFLs with 13, the highest since 2014. And it'll be interesting to see where he projects as a pro. Is it an inside linebacker or outside linebacker in the league? And in the secondary, Chattanooga's Kareem Oru has been a name to know for quite some time. He's a former Arizona State Sun Devil who transferred to the Mox program and just continued to be the same ball-hawking corner that he was out there in Tempe. He's a terrific player. Now, to view the full roster of prospects participating in this week's event, visit the website www.cgsallstar.com. Also, I will be providing practice highlights and player interviews all week long, so be sure to follow me on Twitter at FBallGamePlan and subscribe to the Football Gameplan Network located at youtube.com/footballgameplan. You can also find our Scout Team Podcast prospect interviews on iTunes. Just search Scout Team Podcast or Football Gameplan Podcast, and also on SoundCloud by going to soundcloud.com/FBGP Podcast.